Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live broadcast. Today it's Wednesday, the 11th of September, 2024. My name is Kerry Holzman. Hopefully everybody can see it and hear me correctly. We are live, unscripted, unrehearsed as always. And our live chat is hopping. If you want to join us in our live chat, we only ask that you're kind. That's all you have to be is kind. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be a certain age. None of that matters. Just be kind. Come on in, say hello. We'd love to have you. Now, yesterday was Patch Tuesday, so you would have gotten a lot of Windows updates. If not, you will, or you can manually check and see if there's anything you're missing if you want to force that. Also, I received a big Android update on my smartphone and an NVIDIA GTX video card, graphics card driver update. So if not for all these bad guys trying to take over your computer, ransomware your computer, do something bad to you, just random people attacking you, we wouldn't need half of these updates. But because they are and they will continue, I strongly recommend you get those updates as soon as possible. Doesn't have to be right this minute, but I definitely make sure you're always on top of your updates, regardless if it's Apple or Linux or Windows. Windows is a bigger, more popular target, but the other platforms are not immune. So if you're going to be online, you're going to be attacked by random strangers, and if you make it easy, you're going to be a victim. Now, let's see, who do we have in the chat room today? Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, we got a chat room full of folks. Right on. Welcome in Ray Gallagher and Dean Sermersheim, Jane Steinbreaker, and Dan Nilsson. Doman 2000 saying hello. There's Easy Otter joining us, and David Herzog. Our friend Luke Greenia from Vermont, and David Graham. Mark Gaines in Northern Ireland says hello. Doom Guy says hello. Of course, Marlena, our system administrator, in the chat room, helping out with the background work. A lot of background work here on YouTube that needs to be done. The thumbnails, the video notes, answering your questions, your emails, talking to potential show sponsors or other product review options, offers that we get. She handles all of that and more. 3D Everything just renewed membership, now a member for 28 months. Right on. Thank you for that, 3D Everything. John Williams shouting out hello. There's Ken Stout live joining us, and Ron Barnish says hello. Panaglotis Grammatopoulos says hello from Greece. Welcome in. Got to come up with a nickname for you. That's a lot of syllables. Panny. Welcome in, Panny. Mark Baggett says hello. There's YTJ saying hello. And Gil Garcia saying hello. Oystein, all the way from Norway, joins us and says hello. And there's Richard DeFries. And John Svensson, John Svensson, Ryan Dolan, and Claudio Ventura. David Martinez. And I hope I got everybody who's in early for the beginning of the show. Thanks, you guys, for being on. You're not tardy. There's no late fees. Be kind, rewind. All right, today we have a NVMe Enclosure to review. Now this one's from ORICO or ORICO. I'm not quite sure how they pronounce it. And I have some questions for my viewers regarding these external enclosures. One of the things that has always been a high priority item that I'm hearing about from viewers is performance, right? And no matter how fast things have become over the last 30 plus years that I've been in this industry, you know, speeds are hundreds of times faster than they once were. Storage capacities are immense. We used to measure things in megabytes and then gigabytes and now terabytes, and it's like it's never enough. And what I'm trying to figure out is, what are we doing? I'm trying to figure out, who is the product actually for? Is this are you after bigger, faster, just because an emotional high? Or do you actually use something like this where capacity and performance make a difference. And the reason why I ask is it helps guide the direction of the channel and helps to ground people to understand if they might be spending money on things they don't need to spend money on, which makes me a terrible salesman. I realize there's a market for this, okay? There's definitely a market for this. But what I want to know is, do you have an external drive now, those of us in our chat room? And if so, what are you using? And what about it don't you like? Is it too slow? Is it too small? I'd like to know if you have one and how you use it. What do you use it for? Do you use it for backups? Do you offload your games onto it for freeing up your local hard drive space? This will help me to better understand not only what products to review, but how it can help the vast majority of our viewers, not just 2 or 3 out of the thousands. I don't know. One of the things that surprises me is the inability for people to, maybe it's a refusal to multitask. So if I'm using a 2 terabyte mechanical laptop storage drive that only runs at, say, 500 megabytes a second, that's all, which is still fast, even if it's 200 megabytes per second. It's not like I have to sit there staring at it. It's Windows. I can, whatever I was gonna do next, I can do it now. I don't have to wait for that copy to finish. If I'm making a backup, whatever I'm doing can run in the background. I can ignore it, forget about it, let it run. It doesn't require my time or attention to audit it, babysit it, or watch it. Just move on to the next thing. So what is it that you're doing where you need it right now? Things like video editing would be a good example, right? You want to offload your video edit to an external storage device, and you need that responsiveness. But how many of you are video editing? Photo editing, perhaps. Perhaps, maybe you want to use it as a scratch drive. Totally get it. But how many of you are there? Or are there other ways you're using these that I haven't processed yet? Because when is fast fast enough? When is big big enough? Is there no such thing? Because what we're going to look at today is very impressive. I can tell you already from what I know about this, you're going to get internal NVMe Gen 3 speeds out of this externally, provided you spend enough money. So in other words, you're going to need USB4. Anything less than that, you're not going to get pinnacle speeds. It'll work, it'll just work slower. So if it's going to work slower, why buy an expensive fast enclosure and put a slow drive in it or plug it into a slow USB port? All 3 things have to be equally fast. The USB port has to be fast on the computer. The drive you put in here has to be, ideally, a Gen 4 drive. And then the enclosure itself is going to cost more than a slower enclosure that would take a less expensive, slower drive that would work just fine on a slower USB port. So how many of you have what it takes already that this is the only missing piece? See, this is what I'm trying to whittle down to. Now, some of you just might be curious what's available today, right? But to what point? What purpose does it serve? And I'm trying to figure that point out. So when we do a product review, a lot of times what other channels do is they focus on how hot does it get? How fast does it go? How big of a capacity can it have? How portable is it? How heavy is it? How expensive is it? But what I don't hear the reviewers asking is, why? To me, I solve my customers' problems, all right? So I go to a client and I say, what is it we're trying to achieve here? What's our goal? They tell me what they want to achieve, and I give them the path and the tools to get there. So when we're just talking about the tools, the piece I'm missing is why. What is this something most of you would buy, or is this something few of you would buy? Let me know in the chat room, because they're only going to get faster from this point forward. All right, that's all I'm trying to say. They're faster today than they were last year. They were faster last year than they were the year before. I expect they're going to be faster next year than they are this year. So if your idea is, I'll buy it today and I will eventually get USB4 and I will eventually put a faster drive in it, you're spending more money than you need to. So if you wait until you actually need it, you'll probably get a faster drive that may be compatible with the USB 5 at that point, whenever you get around to it. So buying it today to future-proof just means you're spending more money for a future that you don't know if it's going to be next week or 5 years from now. 5 years from now, it might as well be obsolete. You see what I'm getting at? This stuff depreciates. When I say this stuff, I mean electronics, storage, processors. It's like you bought a Ryzen processor the first year they came out, and you said, one day I'm going to buy the motherboard. And now you still haven't done it, and motherboards are very difficult to find that would be compatible with that. I'll give you an example, okay? Maybe you've got parts you bought because they were on sale with the idea you were going to build a system and it takes DDR3 RAM, and you just never got around to it. For what you spent for those parts, you could have bought much better parts today for the same or less amount of money that takes better, faster RAM. So these are examples about future-proofing. In tech, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because if you buy it when you need it, it'll be cheaper and maybe faster. Let me take a look at your comments in the chat. Let's see what you're saying. Doman 2000 says, I use a lot of Mechanics X laptop 2.5-inch drives for scratch and backup. They're dirt cheap and they're fast enough with USB 3. Yeah, it's very realistic, very grounded. Luke Greenia says, I don't even have one. That's why I'm really interested in the review. Okay. How would you use it? If you had one of these, what would you use it for? Not judging, I'm genuinely curious. How would you use this? I got to back up further. I've missed a lot of comments. Mark Gaines renews his membership, also a member for 28 months. Right on, Mark. Oh, Mark's got the parts to start a Project Zero build, just waiting on a cooler and RAM. Send us pictures when you're done, Mark. I think you're going to be very happy with how it looks and how it runs. Robert Roth says hello. He's a new member. Michael Horico, also a new member, says hello from Cleveland. Right on. Welcome in, Michael. James Carter saying hello. There's Bajan Guy saying good afternoon. Charles Eslick, also a member for 28 months. Thank you, Charles. John Williams and Ken Stout talking about the weather. Ugh, don't get me started. Phoenix, record heat this year, record heat. But talk to me next week. If the weathermen are accurate, we'll finally start entering into some 90-degree weather for the first time in 4 months. Bring it on. I'm done. I'm done with the 110. I'm done. I'm done with anything over 100. It's too hot. You live in the desert, Kerry. Yeah, but no one told me it keep getting hotter every year and stay hotter longer. If I was getting younger, I wouldn't mind so much, but I'm getting older. What a shock. Fubar Mike said he's had bad luck with ORICO and AMD systems. Glitchy only on AMD, happened with several different enclosures. How long ago was that? This stuff changes awfully rapidly. Kelly Stewart joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Kelly. Richard Palmentier says he's got a SanDisk 2 terabyte Extreme portable SSD. So that's already pre-built. You don't add your own storage to that. He uses it for backup of photos, documents, and music files. Easy Otter says he's got a Toshiba external hard drive to store his music. You don't need anything fast for that. That Toshiba's fine. Dan Nilsson's got a Silverstone TS16, but after some time, he had a real smoke test, and then it was dead. He bought a Ugreen that works just fine for photo editing. Okay, we got a photo editor in our group. Bajan Guy says he backs up his photos to a NAS. Fair enough. A NAS isn't really a backup, but okay. David Graham says, I have 2 external drives to hold games and backup. I forgot the brands, but it has to be fast. Why? Why does it have to be fast? What are you doing that's so critically important that you will spend the extra money for the extra speed? Who cares how long the backup takes? Help me understand why you have decided it must be. And you're welcome to decide. I'm not saying you're wrong, but you're paying extra for the speed, and I want to know how do you justify spending the extra money? Why is it that important to you? Is it something that you can't move forward until it's done? With the computer multitasking, can't you just keep using the computer regardless of how long your external drive takes to accomplish whatever it is? Like backups, you can continue to use the computer while the backup's running. What's doing the backup preventing you from doing that you have to wait for the backup to finish first? Richard Palmentier says he's also got a Samsung portable SSD T7 1 terabyte for miscellaneous stuff. Tapio Kuosma says, I shoot 4K 60 ProRes HDR 422 log with my phone. I connect an NVMe enclosure to my phone, and a few seconds is like a few gigabytes, and the enclosure gets really hot after a few takes. Why not just transfer it with Bluetooth? Why not use Quick Share? Are you backing it up, or are you moving it to a PC for editing? I just assumed you were. I assumed you were putting it on the external drive to move it somewhere else, which means you have to copy it again, right? You copy it down and then you copy it back up. If you connect using Quick Share, you go right from your phone right to your computer. No middleman, no cables, no wires. You guys know what Quick Share is? If you have Windows 11, type in Quick Share. It's pretty simple. But again, I'm making assumptions based on what information is offered. If the information you're offering me isn't complete, I'm going to ask questions because I want to understand. William Dawson said he's had good luck with his ORICO for backups, and the only problem is it gets hot, but it's not a major issue. So, William, when it gets hot, what problem does that cause? Does it disconnect? Or is it just you don't like personally that it gets hot, even though it has no impact? Or does it slow down? What's the negative impact of it getting hot? Why is that bad? Because there's hot, and then there's too hot. Hot is normal under heavy use. Too hot means there's a consequence. So as long as there's no consequence, it might be hot, but that's normal. Try to find a way to explain this. Andy Kane says, hey, Uncle Kerry and Auntie Mara. Lana Dro says hello. Luke Greeny would use it to store backups. So you don't need anything this fast for that. You could, okay, there's a lot of different ways you can make backups. The cheapest would be just buying an external mechanical USB powered 2 terabyte drive for $50. Or you can get 2 terabytes for the enclosure plus the cost of the drive, $200. 4 times more, same amount of storage. A lot faster, but again, it's a backup. Who cares? It's not like you can't use the computer while the backup's running. So what's the point? There's Dave Stetzel joining us along with Charlie Purdy says hello. Fubar Mike says the problems he had with the ORICO enclosures were back in 2021. So understand that this technology moves very quickly. And for a company to sustain business, you cannot sell products that are bad year after year after year and continue to generate revenue. So when companies do have products that have issues, whether it was a fluke for you or that was normal for that line of product, I can't say. But what I can say is if they did that over and over and over, there would be no ORICO. It just wouldn't exist, right? Because you'd be killed in warranty cost, your reputation would go down the toilet, and people would say, I'm never going to buy one again. And if you have an upset customer, they'll tell everybody about it. If you have a happy customer, they might tell somebody, hey, this is great. But if they're not happy, they'll tell everybody that'll listen. So it's not in ORICO's best interest, unless they don't want to be around, to sell a product that's going to fail soon. They want you to come back and buy again. They want you to say good things. They want to make money, not just today, but next year and the year after that. And they want to build a great reputation. So any company that's just in it for the money grab, they won't be around very long. The marketplace just won't tolerate it. And then the operational overhead of running the business will cost more than the amount of money they're making. And then they won't be able to pay the bills. It's a very natural process. David Graham with a $5 super chat said, the speed for backups is secondary, but I play games off of them, so the faster the better. So I've said before, and I'll say again, if you want to play video games, it is a very expensive luxury. Today, GPUs are the most expensive I've ever seen them. There hasn't been anything exciting new in gaming in a long time, except maybe Black Myth out of China. The amount of processing power you need, the high-speed monitors, the gaming keyboards and mice, they're very high-profit items. And then, of course, if you need a fast-loading drive, so you're not waiting for the levels to load as these games get bloated and bloated and bloated, that also means you have not only the convenience of having all that money to spend, but now you have time. You also have time to spend hours playing these video games. So it's expensive. It takes excess money. It takes excess time. Not many of us as adults, especially the older we get and the more responsibilities we take on, end up with an abundance of either money or time. Now, back in the day when it was arcade games and they were simple 8-bit games, it's a different story. But yes, I can totally get that spending this kind of cash for external storage is a minor expense for a gamer. Gaming is, it's like talking to a Rolls-Royce owner about the price. You ask somebody with a very expensive car, how many miles per gallon does that car get? And they'll likely say, I don't know, who cares, right? So where you're struggling to fill your tank with gas because you can't afford it, when you own a car that expensive, the price of gas is inconsequential. It doesn't matter. And I think if you're a gamer and you're playing AAA titles, the cost of the storage is minor compared to the cost of the games and the cost of all the hardware required to play those AAA titles. So that makes sense to me. I get it. But I don't know how many of you watch my videos that applies to. And that's what I'm trying to kind of get a feel for who my audience is. What do you guys do? How many of you are using this to play games versus how many of you are just wanting to use this for backups, or how many of you are wanting to use this for other purposes? And how many of you would have no need for this? Which one represents the majority? Kelly Stewart says he's got a Seagate 8 terabyte USB 3 backup drive, no problem with it. I'm assuming that's mechanical. There's my friend Ron Hillier joining us. He says hello. Just looking to see if I've missed anybody. Richard Palmentier said he had a good birthday yesterday. All of his kids in Oklahoma and California, Kansas were all here and wished him a happy birthday. That's always nice. And you get the adult family together with everybody growing up and moving away. That's really special. Awesome. David Graham says, I'm retired and I have both time and money. I love it. I love it. My friend Ron says he's still using a 1080 Ti for gaming. Video cards are too pricey to upgrade them. Agreed. Jack Kugelmass says he is not a gamer. William Dawson said, I agree that buying the newest and fastest is a waste of money if you don't need it. I just finished building an i7-13700K PC. My old one was 5 generations old. That's pretty good. 5 generations. It's time. Luke Greeny is telling Mark, because Luke has Project Zero, he says, you're really going to enjoy that Project Zero system. I'm looking at mine and I can't remember if I said it was Intel or AMD. Oh, if you said it was Intel or AMD, not that there would be a huge difference. Charles Purdy's got a Western Digital 18 terabyte MyBook. It's slow, but it does the job. So if it's doing the job, what does performance have to do with getting the job done unless you're getting paid by the hour? You multitask. You just do something else. Well, it's working. Morton Bob says, gaming is getting expensive. He disagrees. Of course, it's going to depend on multiple factors, but the overall savvy shopper can get great deals even today. Well, I suppose we'll agree to disagree, because I think your definition of a great deal would be mouth-droppingly expensive when compared to a few years ago. So if you're saying you can get a $2,000 video card for just a meager $1,600, if you're a tech-savvy shopper, that's a $400 savings. That's a good deal. I would argue that paying $1,600 is $800 too much. And you'll say, well, but that's what it's selling for. I'd say, yeah, that's my point. It's selling for too much. And even when they're on sale, they're 50% too much money, in my opinion. When Ron Hillier in the chat room, first started out in gaming on the PC back in the 90s, my limit on a video card in the 90s with 90s money, nothing more than $100. As soon as it's over $100, based on making $4.25 an hour, I can't afford it. We used to spend money on sound cards, Sound Blaster 32, Sound Blaster AUS 64. They kept upgrading, getting more expensive, more expensive, more expensive. And my minimum wage wasn't going up. So it wasn't that I was against it. I had to choose between food, rent, electricity, and gaming. And well, I very much enjoyed our gaming. And I definitely, if I could have had more, would have. That wasn't in the world for me, you know. Living paycheck to paycheck, spending that kind of money on a graphics card. If you have lived a life that has abundance, then you're coming from a different perspective than the way I grew up and the people that I grew up with, where we all just barely, we didn't even make our bills. We were mostly living off credit card debt. So to spend more on a graphics card meant putting it on a credit card. We're the least who can afford to pay the interest rates on a credit card. The poorest of the poor pay the most. Rich people would never pay interest. And we would pay so much interest that by the time we paid it off, we could have bought it 3 times. That's just being stupid. But we want it now. And it took real discipline for me to hold myself back and set that $100 limit. And to me, at $100, that was pushing it. Now, $100 in 90s money might be $300, $400 today. And I think upwards of $800 on a video card is fair. Anything above $800 in my world is indulgence and excessiveness. But that's just my perspective. Think about if you went to a home appliance store, what you could spend on $800. This little graphics card that'll last a couple of years, or a new refrigerator, a new stove, a new dishwasher, a new washer and dryer combo that'll last 15, 20 years. It's massive. It weighs 200 pounds or 150 pounds. Little tiny graphics card. Same amount of money. Which would you rather have? I'll get more use out of the appliance over the course of the next decade, which is energy efficient, will save me money on electricity. But if I had an abundance of money, I'd do both. But I never have. I don't expect I ever will, and I try to make decisions that are practical and they make sense. I haven't had a vacation in 2 years. So if it's between buying a graphics card or going on vacation, I'm taking the vacation. So I hope that helps you understand my perspective. So you might be in a different financial status and you might have been there all your life, or maybe you earned your way up there and you've forgotten. There's still a bunch of us still over here. And I'm assuming the vast majority of people are in the making ends meet group versus the amount of people that are comfortable. I could be wrong, but that's my impression overall. And I do try to make the videos appealing to the majority, or what I believe is the majority, which is why I'm asking these questions of the audience that's here today. Our audience may not represent the general majority. We obviously have people that are passionate more than average to be here and to join us on the subject matter. Morton Bob mentions you can buy a PS5 or an Xbox for a reasonable. Oh, agreed. Absolutely. When we talk consoles, I mean, you're still going to take it in the shorts when it comes to paying for the games, but oh yeah, consoles are much better financially than desktops. You also don't have all the configuration issues and driver problems, so they're more reliable. Mara wants to know, would it be helpful to have a mini pros and cons with enclosures or an FAQ, kind of like enclosure or another option? Well, the problem is there's no right or wrong to this, right? It's really, there's the logical side, which is where I tend to lean, and then there's the emotional side, which is I want it. I don't need a reason why. The reason why is because I want it. Neither one of these is wrong. I'm just trying to figure out, again, what does the majority of our audience sit in that? Is it they have a real justifiable logical reasoning, practical reasoning, or is it emotional, or is it they're not interested? They're just here to see the cool tech, right? I think most of you are here to just see the cool tech, and that's fine. This is cool tech. Don't get me wrong. This is in no way saying anything bad about this device, but I am reaching a point now where I'm starting to wonder, will fast ever be fast enough? If we can move up 300 years and these things are moving 3 terabytes every millisecond, is there going to be people going, it's just too slow? You know, will there ever be a point where people will say, that's enough? I'm good. I was good 3 years ago with the speeds 3 years ago. And if not, how come? That's the part I don't understand. But that's just me trying to, I don't get it. I don't understand when is it going to be fast enough for you? And how do you why do you need that? Is it a game? Is it just because? I'm trying to find an answer to that. And I'm hoping somebody here can explain it to me. Lana Dro says, I bought the Silverstone, added a stick of gum, an NVMe drive, and that's my carry and go drive. Right on. I mean, you can buy a little USB drive, it's much smaller than this, that'll move the data a third as fast, and it'll cost a third as much. I guess it depends how you want to use it. Andy Kane said he's okay with USB 2 speeds, even with file transfer. Okay, I'm not. To me, that's too long, but yeah, I get it. It's honest. I appreciate the honesty. So today, what I have before you is the ORICO. We've seen other Oracle products here, for better or for worse, and they've not all been bad. They've not all been great. Which one will this be today? Let's find out what we're looking at. Let me jump over to my screen capture. Let's go to ORICO's website. Let's share that with you right now and take a look at how, okay, that's not working, Carrie. Hold on one second. I thought I had this working. There it is, right there. Okay, so this has a maximum speed. I want you to understand that it will work at slower speeds if you don't have the USB-C type or Thunderbolt 4 type connector, which it works best with. But it'll still work at the limits of your USB or the limits of the SSD drive you plug into it if you're plugging in an older, slower NVMe drive. This is the ORICO AAG M.2-U4. Now, how did they know my password? Anyway, it's silver in color, made of aluminium. Okay, I guess it's British. It's supports up to an 8 terabyte NVMe, and that's likely because you can't buy an NVMe any bigger than that on the marketplace. So it's possible this could support more. We don't know yet because no such thing is invented on the consumer side. So for now, 8 terabytes is the largest capacity NVMe you can buy, and therefore, logically, that'll be the supported capacity limit. It has a USB-C to USB-C or A cable. So it's got a little adapter on the end of the cable, as you can see pictured, that converts it from C to A if need be. You will lose speed in that, by the way, but at least you can use it. It supports Windows, Mac, and Linux operating systems, and the package includes, of course, the enclosure, the manual, a silicon pad for thermal transfer, and a little heat sink, which I don't see listed here, and a plastic plug ×2. Plastic plug. Okay, not quite sure what that means. Aluminum. Oh, it's aluminum here, and it's aluminium up here. Aluminum, aluminium. Well, if you're British, it's aluminium. If you're American, it's aluminum. They got you both covered. Ideal for content creators. Here's how they're promoting it to here's the audience they're promoting it to. Of course, they're going to promote the cooling. You need to. Faster means hotter. So this is all well and good in the pictures, but what is it in reality? We're going to find out. They're comparing themselves to others, but I don't know who the others are. The fan is 7,000 RPM with an actual measured decibel of 40 to 60. The sound produced is about the same as a laptop cooling fan. It will not affect your work. A 5 gig transfer takes only 2 seconds, assuming you have a fast enough drive and a fast enough USB port on your computer. 3,700 megabytes read speed, 3,100 megabytes write speed. That's the best this can do. That's the best you'll get out of it. We already know that our benchmarks will not show anything higher than this. Okay, so you already know anything lower than this will be determined on the computer itself, as well as the is it USB 4, USB 3? What are you plugging it into, and how fast of a drive did you put in there? So a little bit about that 8 terabyte max capacity, USB 4 latest chip compatible with most Thunderbolt 3 and 4, also compatible with USB 3.2, 3.1, 3.0, and supports trim mode. It's got short circuit protection, overcurrent protection. These are very critical because these will kill your NVMe drive when you unplug it without properly stopping it first. Obviously fast read and write speeds, and it says stable performance. Okay, these are the speeds you get at different connection types, what they call protocols. 5 gigs per second on USB 3, all versions Gen 1. You double that to 10 gigabits, not gigabytes, gigabits per second. Gen 2, USB 3.1, 3.2. Then there's 3.2 Gen 2 by 2, which we very rarely ever see equipped on any systems. And that'll do 20 gigabits or 2,000 megabytes per second. All you have to do is kind of do the math in general, right? 5 gigabytes per second, 10 gigabyte, I'm sorry, this is not right. 500 megabytes per second, 1,000 megabytes per second, 2,000 megabytes per second, 4,000 megabytes per second transfer speed. Megabytes. That's the math. Divide by 10. Okay. Well, actually, it's not dividing by 10, is it? I'm multiplying by 1,000, I suppose. And then there's a little error correction overhead. So you're, oh, it's 4,000. Why is the max 3,700? There's error correction involved. There's overhead. It will accept a 2230, a 2242, a 2260, and of course the most common 2280 size NVMe drive. Not the 22110, that's too big. You can plug it into a laptop, a desktop, a phone, an iPhone. There's some examples of an external database, fast video production, storage expansion on your phone, faster game load. I think that means game load. Faster game load. You can have a faster game load. It is compact and portable, obviously. And, oh, it's tool-free, no screwdriver or tools required. We're going to check that out here in just a second. Gently press the hard drive case, slide it open. Okay. Stick in, stick it in there. Stick in the heatsink. It's interesting. Place the heatsink on top of the NVMe drive with the enclosed thermal pad for the best heat dissipation. They're calling it a heat dissipation vest. That's a very unique terminology. Insert the solid state drive into the card slot at a 30-degree angle. Press the buckle downward and insert it into the SSD fixing hole. My studio is in a fixing hole. That's where we do all our fixing. Rotate the buckle 90 degrees and secure, and then gently push to close. I think they mean gently slide. Okay, there's some English translation here that, you know, clearly isn't the best translation, but I get it. So silicon thermal pad, a metal cooling vest, plastic stopper. See, now we've never heard this word stopper before. I don't know where that word came from, but I'm assuming what they're referring to is the buckle. So they're calling the buckle the stopper. I really wish companies would pick a word and stick with it. This is very confusing to first-time users, but that's why I have a job. I can explain all this. And this is the user manual. You absolutely want to get your manual. Okay, so these kind of misspellings and misinterpretations, once again, very common with parts coming out of China. We're used to it. This one's not too bad overall. Everybody has typos anyway, but there's some interesting interesting terminology. How much is it? How much is it? Specs, package list. Did I see the price? Jump up to the top. I don't see a price here. I think we have a link in the video notes, but it's on Amazon, $100. And join Prime to buy this for $80. If you're a Prime member, I guess it's $20 off. And of course, with Amazon, you have 30 days free to return it for any reason whatsoever. Doesn't have to be broken, doesn't have to be anything wrong with it. You just changed your mind, no problem. I would put a Gen 4 drive in this if it were me. Now, we had an email from a gentleman named William I want to share with you before we test this. William has bought several NVMe enclosures and has documented his experience, which saves me a lot of work. So let's talk about what William's experience was like, and then we'll plug this in and see how it compares, just so we have something, some reference point. He goes, I'm listening to your plan to review the ORICO and Zyke drive enclosures. I decided to throw together what I have to see what I get. I'd meant to do it anyway, so you just push me a little harder advanced as the ones you will be looking at. Under testing the enclosures, they got slightly warm, but none of them got hot. I'm not sure what they would do under extensive heavy loads. It's not likely I would ever use it in that way. He's testing with a Minis Forum UM790 Pro with a USB4 connection to a fanxiang. I don't know why he thinks it's, well, we made the mistake. We thought that was an A at the end. It's a G. Anyway, fanxiang S880 4TB NVMe drive. Those are good Gen 4 drives. I recommend them. Says the results are decent, but not exceptional, with the hyperdrive slightly faster than the ORICO. I don't know what the hyperdrive is, but I guess we're going to find out. My guess is you're going to find the same thing with the Zyke drive. For reference, the stock 1 gig Kingston I tested it with. A second D drive is a 2 TB Western Digital 850X Gen 4 NVMe. Comes in at 7,000 read and 6,700. That's if it's installed locally, not through an enclosure. The PC is definitely fast enough to use the enclosure, but my sense is the best we will get. Yes, that's when the drive is plugged in to the computer motherboard plugged in directly to a Gen 4 motherboard with the bandwidth available. I guess he's saying, I want to know what this drive can do in the best case installed locally versus what it can do in the external enclosure. I think that's what he's saying. So here he's got the hyperdrive next USB4 NVMe SSD enclosure. Hyperdrive seems to be similar to the Zyke drive, a little smaller, no internal cable storage, mostly a metal heatsink around the drive and controller, similar price. Numbers aren't bad, 3376 and 3232 on the sequential reads and writes on USB4. Here's the ORICO M.2 NVMe. This is a different model. He says this is similar to the one you're reviewing, but no fan with a full aluminum case, no internal visibility. Still pretty good speeds there, 3100 on the reads, 2800 on the writes. That's respectable. Enio M.2 NVMe Enclosure, never heard of it. This one's cheap, plastic, and a lightweight heatsink that's supposed to be rubber banded onto the drive. It's rated at 10 gigs a second, that's 1,000 megabytes, and probably meets that. Copying operating systems when replacing a Kingston drive with anything else, not good for much else. You could ask, why does the UM290 Pro still have a Kingston drive in it? I guess I was lazy that day or week or whatever. Yeah, so like I said, about 1,000, and that's just exactly what he's getting. 10 gigs, 1,000 on the maximum performance. I don't care about these other numbers. I care about what is the maximum you can expect from it. It won't go any higher than this. Best case scenario. This is all variable. This could be anything, but it won't be bigger than this. All right, of possible interest, the hyperdrive and ORICO have similar implementations. I'm not quite sure what the difference in the drive controller means. Probably not much. The host controller is the same. The Enio is quite different. No surprise there. Wow, look at a great job William has done here with all this documentation. I love it. Love it. You guys can send me emails like this all day. I'd be happy to share them. Talks a little bit about the drive itself, looking at general information, capabilities, smart technology information, drive temperatures, etc. Again, here on the Enio, we have the hardware drive information in the, this looks like the, oh, he's in HW Info. That's where he's pulled this information out. Warning temperature on these drives at 90 degrees Celsius, so similar to a CPU. When they overheat, usually they'll slow down, they'll get really, really slow, and or they will disconnect. So you know if either of those two things are happening, you might have a heat issue with your enclosure. So matching the drive to the enclosure is pretty important. You don't want to spend a lot on one and a little on the other, regardless. They should be equally matched for the ultimate in performance reliability. Okay, with that, let's go back over to camera one. Here I am. Hey, let me move over to the chat. Captain Blinsky says he stuck a 2 terabyte Kingston NVMe and a sabered enclosure. Speeds are around 3200 read. It gets slightly warm. In what USB port? USB 3.2, USB 4, Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4. All right. Well, there's a delay between when I speak and when you hear me. I'll wait for a response. Let's get this opened. Thanks again to William for documenting all that work. That takes a lot of time. And then he could have kept that information to himself, but instead he decided to share that with us, and I thought I'd share it. Well, he shared it with me so that I could share it with you. So thank you for that, William. Much appreciated. So now we at least have some reference of different drives and different enclosures and their speeds and performance from a real viewer, not somebody who's a reviewer. Here is how this is packaged, just a sleeve. We've got the enclosure, which is about the size of a remote control. Trying to turn the volume down, it's not working. Peel that off of there. We have the pictured USB cable, USB-C to a USB-C with a USB-C to A adapter on top. It's got little dust covers on it, which I never understand why they add that landfill material. Talk about one-time use plastics. They don't need those. All right, so that stays attached so you don't lose it. So if you want to go C to C, or if your computer only supports type A, or you're a tech like me and you need to plug into whatever your customer's got, one cable does it all. These are the stoppers. You get 2 of them. I guess you get 1 to lose. This is our thermal pad, and I guess you get 1 to lose. And we have the world's thinnest heatsink. I guess something's better than nothing. And underneath, documentation. Okay. Let me clear my table a little bit here. I'll just set this right there. So now we got the good stuff. Documentation, dust jackets. So, as I mentioned, what drive you put in this matters. Putting a Gen 5 drive in there is a waste of money. Putting a Gen 3 drive in there will get you close to the maximum speed, but your bottleneck will be the drive. It'll be cheaper, it'll run cooler, it'll also run slower. So for me, yeah, it definitely looks like it says Ringjiana, but it's a Fanxiang. And let's get this open. Brand new 2 terabyte Gen 4. This uses the same controller chip and the same NAND chips as the name brands. They're exactly the same. Check it out yourself. But the name brands have a name brand price, and this relatively unknown brand, in order to be competitive, they charge less. I've not seen one of these fail yet. I think I have. I've got all the empty boxes. I could put them up on the table here for you to see, but there's about 2 dozen empty boxes and not a failure yet. Sooner or later, we'll get one. It's inevitable. But I don't see any. I saw a video where a tech saw this drive. Tech I respect. I won't say his or her name. But a customer brought a computer in for repair, and it had a Fanxiang drive, and he's like, oh, no, we're taking that out. And replaced it with like a Crucial P3, which is a worse drive in performance with no better reliability. I understand why he did it. He said, oh, that's some brand I don't recognize, but didn't realize likely the chips on this were superior on a more expensive drive than the name brand drive he put in there that he trusts the name on. And he didn't trust the name on this one, and he didn't test it. He didn't look into it. He just immediately said this is junk without any investigation. I've done the same thing. And I'm like, should I tell him? Why would he listen to me? He probably doesn't even know who I am. So what's done is done. Anyway, as soon as I can figure out how to open the box. Andy says, is this the S880? Yes, this is the S880 PCIe 4.0. Do we have a link to this, Mara? It includes a useless screwdriver and the small screws, which you should not need. Anything you're using that you're plugging this into should already come with screws. It's nice that they give you a couple extras because these are very hard to find if you ever lose one. So if you don't need them, I'd recommend you put them away somewhere. Mara? She's vanished.
All right, I have to go upstairs. What's up?
Do we have a link to the S880 2 terabyte?
Not in there now, but I'll put it in.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, and there's instructions because... Okay, this is really easy, I guess, to put together. No tools are required, so they say. Let's try it. See what happens. So, well, that just came off. Okay, nothing locks this in place, so if you pick it up wrong, you're going to accidentally slide this. Oh, maybe not. Okay, that sounded good. Maybe it just wasn't. You should have to push down. Okay. I was a little worried. I just didn't. It was loose in the box. And then when I secured it, and I secured it the first time, it came right off. I didn't. You'll feel it click. Once it clicks, it's pretty secure. Now on the drive you have a small fan, and it looks like, given that there's holes on this side, it looks like it's going to suck air in near the fan, blow it across, and then out back by the USB-C port. I think that's your cooling model. And then by placing the lid on it, it sort of forces the air through a tunnel to get you the optimum airflow if the fan moves enough air. All these little slots are for different sizes of NVMe drives, so we're probably going to use the furthest one. Since 2280 is the largest it will accept, I'm assuming that's going to be the 2280. And then there's little straight lines, and it should say written on the circuit board 2280, 2260, 2242, etc. Without my glasses, I can't see what it says, but I don't care because I'm just going to see what fits. So if I can get the package open, we have a sandwiched piece of plastic here, which is pretty common, which I've opened upside down. We will not use that cheap screwdriver, that's garbage. We're not going to use these screws. This is a toolless design. This is a standard Gen 4 2 terabyte high performance NVMe with top speeds of 7,300 megabytes per second. We're not going to get 7,300 megabytes per second, but we should see, well, if we're plugged into a 40 gig port, we should see close to 4,000, 3,800, something like that. So that's going to go in just like we always do it with motherboards. And then in the Ziploc, I'm glad this is a Ziploc and not a sealed bag so that we can reseal it. Otherwise, I'd have to find a Ziploc bag.
Is that the 1 or the 2?
It's a 2. Yeah. S880 2 terabyte. Thank you. So Mara's adding the fanxiang S880 to our video notes. You can use any NVMe drive you want. I just think the performance for capacity and overall value is the best buy right now and has been for some time. Now this is a funky little thing. Let's see if I can work my way over to the camera and I will show it to you. I'm going to try. Bear with me. Studio C is still under construction, but it just means I have to contort myself. Let's see. So there's like a bigger lip on one side, almost looks like a letter T, and on the other side, it's like a letter I. It's very difficult to show that to you. So I guess one end goes in the hole and twists into the circuit board and twists to hold the NVMe drive down at the same time. So I'll get my glasses so as I can see. And we'll put the small, I guess the small end, into the hole. Lower this down. Hold on, how far down does that go? Hold on just 1 second. I have to move the drive out of the way. I've never used one of these before and I don't want to read the instructions. It should push all the way down until it hits the bottom. That's what I thought. So we're going to put that back in. Right? It's going to look like that. We're going to grab this piece. We're going to go into that slot. You know what? Let me bring this up. Hold on. Without a close-up camera, I have to use my feet. Use my foot camera. Step over here. All right. We're going to put this in this. Oh. Helps to have tiny fingers. I'm going to put that in there. As far down as it'll go. Guess I have to turn it. No. Hold on. What am I missing? Go this way. No. Let's go the other way. Maybe it only goes in one way. No. No. Hold on, maybe you gotta put it on here first. Maybe like, no, maybe if we go that way. Well, this keeps coming out, so I gotta make sure I get that in there good. And I have to figure out if this rotates one way or the other. It should be toolless, it should not require. Okay, this is very difficult to do while walking up to the camera and holding it facing you instead of facing me. I'm the one doing the work, I need to see. But in order to show you guys, you have to see what I'm doing. So welcome to my dilemma. Let's take a look here. I guess you just slide it in now. This is should be intuitive. We may be pulling the instructions out. I mean, say what you will about the screws, at least the installation is very straightforward. It does seem like if that plug goes in first, the drive won't seat, the plug's in the way. So I guess, here's my guess. Now that I'm reverse engineering this, I think I can bring it up to the camera and do it now. I think in my head I understand this, but I will practice that theory live on camera. When I push this drive down, that little hole at the top of the drive leaves a different shape hole on the circuit board, right? Because the hole on the circuit board looks like that. We're going to cut that in at the bottom third of it gets removed, or covered up, I should say. But it changes the way it looks. See, now it just looks like that. So if you're looking at it like that, then it makes sense that the small end of the plug goes into that available hole, and then you turn it one way or the other, maybe. It's not in all the way. So it's got to go in further than that. Great theory, Carrie. Unless, no. It really should not be this difficult. Unless it just has to be rotated. Is one side different than the other? No, it won't go in all. It's got to go in. There's a little groove right there that the drive should fit into. So I guess maybe you've got to put it in the groove first. Slide the drive into the groove with the plug vertical. That is not easy. I think I'd rather have a screw. Don't take that out of context. And I dropped it. Now we know why they gave me two. Okay. I'll tell you what I would have preferred in this design, especially at this price range, is a fixed position mounted brass standoff that I could move to different slots that is securable. That requires a tool. Most people are going to use 2280. That should be, by default, a brass standoff, and it would be nice if it had a quick disconnect plastic ring so I could slide the drive in, twist the ring, and we'd be done. We'd have been done 5 minutes ago. But I'm going to grab the spare one here, and I want to just try, and this shouldn't be the way that this has got to be used, but I'm going to try placing the drive groove into the groove on the plug and lowering them both together, which is way harder than it should be. That did it. That did it. Now, you don't have to use the thermal paste or the heatsink, but if you're going to put a high-performance drive in and you don't use it, don't be surprised if it overheats. So, well, this isn't the world's greatest heatsink. It's something, and sometimes that's all it needs. Now, the folks over at ORICO supposedly tested this and decided that that's all the heatsink drives need at this speed. Let's see if we get the same results. I'm going to put this thermal pad on straight. I don't know how well you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully it's coming through. I'm not being blocked by the keyboard. I'm going to peel the tape off at the top. Be nice if it had a pull tab. Three days later. There we go. Heatsink. It just sticks on with the tape. This just slides back on. Is there a front or a back? Yes, apparently the word ORICO, which is printed on the glass, goes opposite of the fan. No, there's a cutout here, and that cutout is for these vents, and then there's vents on the other side. So ORICO goes over the fan. I just have to figure out how. How does that go on? It would be nice if we had some sort of arrows or dots to help us align reinstallation. Or does it go on? No, it would have to go this way. You couldn't put it on this way because of that. That's completely flat and that is cut out. So it has to go, see how that's raised right there? That's cut out's got to go there. So that means it has to slide that direction. Little dots, little arrows. That's all it takes. Okay, so it looks like it's going to go on very, very close to being closed. Just maybe 1/4 of an inch of space is all you're closing, or is all you're sliding. Just 1/4 of an inch. That's it. You feel it lock? It's on. Okay, some of this is just me getting familiar with the engineer's design and trying to understand what they were thinking. Doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means it takes me a minute to understand what were they thinking. I kind of got it. I would have done it differently. But hey, you know, that doesn't mean the product's bad. It's just, I don't know how often you're going to be opening this up and changing it, but the more often you do it, the less of a big deal it'll be. But if you just do it once a year, you're probably going to struggle with it every single time. All right, USB-C and USB-C. Now, I asked Mara before the show, I said, I know that we have, somewhere in here, we have a Thunderbolt capable mini PC, or, you know, even at least USB4. And so, yeah, we found a couple of USB4s, but I'm like, there's got to be a Thunderbolt. And I thought the Minis Forum MS01 is a monster. It's a beast. It's got to have Thunderbolt. And my understanding is that it does. And if not, it still has USB4 regardless. So that's why this has been sitting here the whole time. I just need to turn it on. We should have it hooked up and ready to go. It's a clean install of Windows 11, and we'll run Crystal Disk Mark and any other tests you want to see. There we go. We are live, obviously unedited and unscripted. Everything you see happening before you is happening right now. So there's no taking out mistakes or misunderstandings or fire. It is what it is. So we hope you appreciate this raw, honest content. Let's jump over to camera 2, I think is the HDMI input. There it is. Thank you, Peter, with a €1 super chat contribution. And also to Ray08131 with a $5 super chat. He says, great, good work, Carrie. Thank you, Ray. Dr. Bill with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Dr. Bill. Thank you for keeping us independent. We are not being paid for this review, but we were sent the unit for free in exchange for an honest review. In case you're wondering how we got here. If I like it or I don't like it, these are my opinions, and I'll tell you why. I'm not paid either way. So let me go full screen on my side of things so I can see. Oh, I can see now. Okay, all right. Now that I can see, let me bring it back down so I can go back to camera 1 just for a moment to show you me plugging. I'm gonna show you me. It's a weird. I'm going to demonstrate plugging this in. I'm going to show you me plugging this in. Bad English. All right. So on the back of this unit, there are 2 USB-C ports that should also be Thunderbolt. Pretty sure. The fan spins. I don't see any lights lighting up. I guess there's no RGB on this. The ORICO logo faces me. Not that that really matters. There's not much to see here. Oh, there is a blue light right here. Right where my finger is, there's a blue light. This is a brand new drive. It has no partition and no format. Let's see how Windows handles it. Let's go back over to our window capture. Back over to full screen for me so as I can see. Is my mouse working? Hey, it's almost like I knew what I was doing. All right, so before we can run Crystal Disk Mark or any testing, we're going to need to partition and format this drive. So we're going to type disk management. Helps if I spell it correctly. Oh, well, that's it. Create and format hard disk partitions right up there. I didn't even have to spell it all out. That's what we want. It should auto-detect it, and it does. It says this is disk 3, and you can just go with the defaults here. Click OK. Should be in here. It's a 2 terabyte. There's disk 0 and disk 1. There's disk 2, which is apparently our boot drive. Here is disk 3, 1863 gigabyte. That's 2 terabytes. That's us. New simple volume by right-clicking and choose new simple volume. You go with the defaults. Next, next, next. I'll change this to just to keep me from confusing the other drives installed in the system. I'll say ORICO. Next and finish. Now that's formatting it and it's good to go. Now we can test it. So if we look on the My Computer icon, we're going to see the ORICO drive, which is drive F. Wait a minute. Why is drive F? Okay, yeah, 1.81. Without my glasses, I thought that said 1.31. But no, 1.81 is correct. We've talked about, oh, you lose 200 gigs. No, you don't. It's just the way the math is calculated. The actual 2 terabytes is right here at where it says free space. This number, or the capacity number, is the true number. And then this is Microsoft Math, which says that 2 billion, whatever that is, 211,000. I don't know what that's a big number. And they're like, yeah, that's 1.81. So even though it says clearly it's at 2, Microsoft says, yeah, it's 1.81. Microsoft does the math differently. You didn't lose any space by formatting it. All right, I've got a whole video on that if you want to learn more, or you can Google search gigabytes versus gigabytes, G-I-B-I, gigabytes. All right, Crystal Disk Mark. We already have this installed. It may not be the latest version, maybe it is. And I think we have Thunderbolt on this. Let me just check. Right-click, Device Manager. Does this system have Thunderbolt? It's definitely USB4. I don't see Thunderbolt listed. I'm not quite sure if it has its, I thought it had its own heading. I don't know, but let's just see what we get. We're gonna hit drive F, that's our 2 terabyte drive, and we'll do all the tests, and we're off to the races. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, place your bets. We're on sequential read number 1 of 5. We'll get the best of 5 here. 3817. That's pretty quick. That is pretty quick. Remember, at 40 gigabits per second, the max you're going to see is 4,000. As close as we can get to 4,000, great. But remember, there's parity error checking overhead, and the more data transfer, the more parity and error checking there's going to be, the more overhead. So keep that in mind whenever you're testing a drive and you're wondering, why isn't it getting me 4,000? The drive can do 7,300. The device says it can do 4,000. It is doing 4,000. It absolutely is. Once you add up the hidden parity checking and error checking data, you're pretty much right at 4,000. So that's a best case scenario. That's putting in a capable drive. That's putting into a USB Type-C, USB 4 port, right? This is a best case use scenario right here. Now, while that's running, let's see if I can put myself back at the same time. So bear with me for a second as I move myself into a corner, and then we'll watch it together. Ron Hillier says, check out that action. That's right. Whatever happened to Camera Girl? She's in the chat room right now. That's Marlena in the chat room. You're literally talking right to her. Richard Palmatier said he's got the ORICO M.2 NVMe SSD Enclosure. I took the rubber plug and twisted it in, and then he pulled it back some to get the NVMe drive in. I guess that'll work too. There's Richard Grounds. So I went to the UPS store to return a product yesterday. I'm going to add him as a moderator since I know he's a real person. Richard Grounds. So while we're waiting for this, I'll tell you a story. Well, we are parking. Hold on a minute. I got to find myself. Where'd I go? There I am. Pull into the parking lot for the UPS store because I have to return something to Amazon. And another car is coming the other way. And I'm going to let them have their pick of the parking spots. I don't care. There's plenty available. Take one. And the person says, you go. And I got my indicator on. Like, I guess we're both going to the same place at the same time. That was very nice of them. People in Phoenix don't often allow somebody through. They're very much, gimme, gimme, gimme. It's all about me. So that was really nice of that person, whoever they are. And I parked. Then they came past me and parked a couple spots over. I get out of the car. I don't think anything of it. And the person says to me, hey, you took my spot, Carrie. First of all, how do you know my name? I was concerned it might have been somebody I knew that I forgot I knew. Says, I watch you on YouTube. I used to watch you on YouTube. Ah, I knew I had a viewer. I knew I had one. But he said used to. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Do you not like it? No, I just got busy. I was like, well, come and join us again, you know. And as far as the spot goes, you know, that's the price of fame, you know. You get famous, you get the good spot. Anyway, we were both there at the same time. Just, we couldn't have scheduled it any better. Both going to the UPS store at the same time. And I don't get recognized very often. And it does go to my head, just so you know. It absolutely goes to my head. It was very nice to meet him. And it's very, you got to think of the timing that was involved in that for that to happen. They were both going to the same place at the exact same, and we both left our house and ran our errands or whatever we did, that we ended up at the UPS store at the same time. What are the odds? I should go buy a lottery ticket. So I said, come join us in the chat room, and there he is, Richard Ground, saying hello. Pretty neat experience. All right, there's our final numbers. That's really, really good. The 3818 and 3000 on those sequential writes. That's pretty good. So how much faster is it possible to go if the USB port that we're plugged, or the data port, whatever it is, Thunderbolt, USB, if that has a maximum 40 gigabits per second, how much faster is it possible to go? Now this is warm. I will tell you, this is warm. It's not too hot to touch, and it's running extraordinarily fast. The faster it goes, the warmer it's going to get. Just makes sense. We just don't want it to run too warm. Too warm meaning the speed starts slowing down and the device disconnects. So there's another drive test we can run, ATTO. Someone mentioned I should put together my own USB flash drive and sell it. I can't do that legally. The software I use, like Crystal Disk Mark, I don't own that. I cannot distribute it and I cannot profit from it. But I can tell you where to get it, and you can get it for free the same way I did. And this channel is always about teaching you how to do things for yourself, not about paying me to do things for you. So if you want to carry USB drive, you have to make it. But everything on it is free. You can Google search it if you need to. I only use a handful of utilities: CPU-Z, HW Info, Crystal Disk Mark, Crystal Disk Info, Cinebench R23, Prime 95. Those are all free. But for me to distribute something I don't own is theft. And furthermore, I don't want to do it for you. I want to teach you how to do it so you don't have to ask me. All right? That's just not how I want to earn my living, is sweeping your floors. I don't want to do that. I want to do something more challenging mentally than selling USB drives. Anyway, I could have my own software developed, but then to maintain it and update it constantly, it's too expensive. What was I going to, oh, my flash drive. I think I have some version of the ATTO on here. Let me plug it in and see. Should be the right flash drive. Is that going to be drive G at this point? It is. That's a lot of drive letters. So under PC testing software, you can see all of these software packages. A lot of them I don't use anymore, or occasionally. The ones that get used the most would be CPU-Z, Crystal Disk Info and Mark, and HWI Hardware Info, which is available from the same site that does CPU-Z, CPU-ID. Now, if I go back one, there's the I don't know what the latest version is. I definitely did not download this 4 years ago. That's 6 years ago. Let's install it. What the heck? Unzip. 2 files. Where are they? Unzipped them where? I wasn't paying attention. C:\ATTO. Okay, that's where they are. It's a weird place to put them. Oops. C:\ATTO disk benchmark 4.0. Could we have more subfolders, please? Setup. Next. See, that's the other thing. The software I like to use is all portable. This has to be installed. Because this is a test bench, I don't mind, but on a permanent desktop, you're just adding more, you're putting your own bloatware on. These benchmarks are bloatware. So you want to do that to yourself, you'd knock yourself out. But I mean, how often are you going to use this that you need that installed in your registry and system files? I'm going to close this out, all right? And then we're going to go to the start menu. Start menu? I don't see a desktop icon for ATTO. All apps should be at the A's. There it is. Yes. And we want volume F. And we should see the same numbers. Start. The smaller the files are, the slower it's going to be because it's got to handle a bunch of little tiny things. Little tiny things go back and forth, back and forth. All that management of file management takes longer, so your file speeds go down. The bigger the files are, the faster they will transfer. I'm editing video files. These are big individual files. One file could be 3-hour video. And that video at 1080, never mind 4K, is going to be somewhere between 3 and 10 gigs, depending on bit rates and frame rates, etc. So if you look on ATTO, if you're not understanding what you're seeing here, these are the size of the files: 512 bytes, 1 kilobyte, 2 kilobyte. It doubles each time. 4, then 8, then 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 4096, 8192. And you'll notice the bigger the files get, the more efficient the data transfer is. It's just logical. You can carry a big box, or you can carry 47 little boxes. If you're carrying a big box, you probably only need to make one trip from the car to the house. I got Studio C Move on the mind. You could tell from my analogies what's going on. And if you have a bunch of little tiny boxes, you can only hold so many in your hands. You might have to go outside and go to the trunk, and maybe you can carry 6 or 8 of them without dropping them. You can go back out and grab another 6 or 8, and you're going to do that for as many as you have. Versus one big box, you take one trip, it's more efficient. It's kind of like that if we want to use a very loose analogy to give you the gist of how data transfer works. And this is universal across any sort of device: hard drive, solid state drive, flash drive. Okay, smaller files are going to be slower. On the other hand, you're probably not likely going to move 2.5 million of them, even though you might move a file that's 2.5 million bytes in a single file. See what I'm getting at? It depends on how you're using it. As a storage device, you're probably using very large file sizes with regards to backups or video or photo editing work. Those are all going to be very large files. Smaller files may be games, system files when you're loading Microsoft Office. When you look at the directory of Windows and you see all the subfolders and subfiles, that's a lot of little files. And it could take a while to back that folder up because it's not as efficient. And that's been universally true since the very first computer, home computer. I don't go back any further than the home computer, so I can't tell you the way it was when it came to paper tape or punch cards. I don't think it was relevant. But regardless, it's relevant today. And as again, when you watch the left side, you'll see the file size that we're using here is getting bigger, and our transfer speeds are getting longer. And it's telling you over here on the write speed and the read. So it writes it and then it reads it back, writes it, reads it back. Look at the difference between the read and the write on smaller files. And look at how the numbers keep doubling as the file size keeps doubling. It's all math. So here we're at 2.66 gigs. Remember, we can get to 40 gigs. And this went up to a 256 meg file size. But imagine if we raised that up. What if we went to 32 gigs? Let's do it again. Because at a 64 meg file, we're getting that 3.5 gigs per second, right? And the maximum we're going to get is 4. And the max we saw with Crystal Diskmark is 3.8. So even that file was too small to really exploit the benefit of this drive on a big file read. And again, true of any type of storage, this is universal. The speed will differ, obviously, based on the device itself. The cable you're using can impact your speed. Always keep the cable the device came with. These type of cables can be very expensive. These are not phone charging cables. They are different and they're more expensive. So bear all that in mind. Everything is, in this example, we're trying to show the best case scenario. But if you're buying the drive and you don't have USB4 or you're not having a Gen 4 drive in it, you're not going to see the same numbers I'm showing you. Your numbers will be lower. This is best case. It'll still work. But if you're going to run it at lower speeds with a slower drive, you could buy a cheaper enclosure. Just saying. I don't have anything to really complain about. There's some things that could have been made clearer. It's quiet. If you put it to your ear, you can hear the ocean. I can't tell which side is blowing air in and which side is blowing air out. I need like a little piece of paper or something. You know what? This little plastic bag ought to be enough. Does it suck the bag in? No, it's blowing the air out. What about on this side? So it's definitely drawing the air in on the fan side. Even though it's not really drawing the plastic in, it's not enough suction, but it's definitely blowing the plastic out here, for sure. I think. I can't tell. It's such a little airflow. It's a tiny little fan. I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm just curious. And if you look, I don't know how well you can see this on the camera, but the blue light is blinking. I think that suggests we're reading data. And I think when we're writing it, it flashes red. I don't know. On most devices, when the light blinks, it means either one. But I swear I just saw a red light a minute ago. So let's see. Was there a red light? Did I imagine it? Well, you guys can't even see it. My apologies, guys. I didn't realize I was that far to the right. Let's see if I can. I'll tell you what. Let's just go full screen for a minute. Right here. See the blue light? When it's not reading or writing, I guess that light is solid. Do not unplug this where the light is flashing. And I thought I saw a red light, but that might have been a reflection off the back of the Ethernet. So when I was testing it with a little baggie, I don't know if you saw that either. This side where the fan is appears to be blowing the air out, which would mean it's drawing the air in from here. Again, not that it matters, I'm just kind of curious, but it's such a minor suction, it won't even draw the plastic bag into it. So it's apparently all the airflow that's needed, I guess. It's pretty weak, but you can hear it. Maybe. It's not loud, but if you're in a quiet room, you'll definitely know it's on. Blue light still blinking. Okay, let me put the camera back in the corner. Let's see how our test is running. I can just put it right here for now. And let me go full screen on camera 2. Test is finished. No, I wanted it to go to. It won't go any higher? All right, well, anyway, 3.54, obviously reads are always faster than writes on these SSDs. The bigger the SSD is, even if it's a Gen 3 512 gig versus a 2 terabyte, if it's the same make and model and the only difference is capacity, the larger one on solid state drives runs faster. It's just the way the technology works. So if you have a Crucial P3 512 gig and a Crucial P3 2 terabyte, they're both Gen 3, the 2 terabyte will run faster on Gen 3 than the 512 gig on the same make and model of drive. The bigger the drive is, the faster it runs in the same generation, within the confines of how fast that data transfer can be. So Gen 3, about the max you're going to see is a 34 to 3600, 3500 tops. So essentially Gen 3 is 40 gigabits. Gen 4 doubles that, and Gen 5 doubles it again, essentially. So if you can get 3500 on Gen 3, maximum about 7000 on Gen 4, a little bit more, 73, 7400. Gen 5, you should in theory be able to get, again, double, 15,000. Gen 6 should be 30,000, Gen 7 should be 60, Gen 8 should be 120, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so let me go back over to the chat room. Well, first, let's go back to full screen on camera 1. And some of you may be wondering about our temps. We can pull up AIDA64 or something and pull up our temps, but I can tell you it's not running too hot or we wouldn't be getting these numbers. One of the ways you know right away. So then you might say, well, how close is it getting to the limit? I mean, we can check, but I'm not too worried about it. Really, how often are you going to be transferring files that are massive, right? If you're somebody that's going to do that all the time, that might become an issue. I suspect if we torture test this, given its design, I'm assuming the folks at ORICO have already calculated all this in, and I would assume it can get as hot as it's allowed to get, right? If you push it hard, and no more than that. So on these, you don't want them any more than, say, 90. So I imagine if we throw everything at this for a long period of time and we watch the heat build, I don't think it'll ever get hot enough to throttle or disconnect. So because of that, who cares? It can run hot, it can run cool, what do I care? It's not going to affect the performance unless it's ever too hot. But we can run it if you want to run it. We'll run it. Like if I was seeing, you've seen, if you've watched my reviews, you've seen me deal with NVMe drives where we get 3,000 megabytes on the read and 500 megabytes on the writes. That's not right. That's because the drive's overheating on the reads. So when it goes to the writes, it's already so hot, it's throttling and it's affecting performance. So even though the writes won't be 3,000, they'll be slower, they should be in the 2,000s. They shouldn't be 500. That's your indication you're overheating and throttling. That's on an internal drive. On a USB drive, it'll disconnect you. And at that point, what are you going to do about it? Let's just say this was overheating. What are your options at that point? What can you do? I would say you'd have to buy a new enclosure or a different NVMe drive that doesn't get so hot. Could you put an NVMe drive in here that has a heat sink on it already? Maybe. Something like the Samsung or the Western Digital where the heat sink's not too tall might fit in there, but ORICO hasn't tested it with those and they're not recommending. They're saying if you use it the way we intended it, it'll work it'll work the way we say it works. So let me take a look in the chat and see what you guys have to say about that. Planet Cryos joins us and says hello. There's Bill Sony T. Bill Leatherland says hello, joining us from England. Always good to see our friend Bill. He's been watching us for years and years and years. Planet Cryo says he has a few ORICO enclosures and he likes them. William Denton mentions Acasis makes a really nice one as well. Oh, sure. I mean, on the market, there are options for NVMe enclosures, but not many of them are USB 4. That's the whole thing about this, right? Of all the NVMe enclosures out there, how many are Thunderbolt or Thunderbolt 4 or words? Got to use my words. USB 4. So if you filter that down to just USB 4 NVMe enclosures, you don't really have that many to pick from. And they're all going to probably be at $100 or more. So the question is, of those, which one's the best? Well, there's no best. It's like there's a row of candy bars. There's a Mr. Good bar. There's a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. There's a Butterfinger. Which one's the best? They're all, it's really up to you. When you go to the restaurant and they hand you a menu, and the menu has a lot of items to pick from. Go to Cheesecake Factory, they hand you a booklet that's about this thick of menu items. Chapter 1. Okay. A lot of Chinese food restaurants, you know, you want the number 1 or the number 13 or the number 72 or the number 99. Like, there's a lot of options on the menu. And if you say, well, which one of these options is the best? You ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers, and none of them are wrong. At the end of the day, there's no such thing as best except as you define it. And it doesn't make it the best for anybody else. Is this good? Does it do what it says it can do? Yes. Is it a fair price? Yes. Is it perfect? To me, no. I think the little plug needs to be easier. I think there needs to be alignment dots to put the lid back on. They're pretty minor little improvements, honestly. Very minor. I think I had one other suggestion, but I can't remember what it is. It says, and it does exactly, or rather it does exactly what it says it'll do. I'm wondering, you know, when I do reviews like these, how necessary they are, because if the manufacturer already tells you, we've already done all this testing, here's the best you're going to see, even if it's a Wi-Fi router, we're never going to see anything better than that. And you go, well, how will that work for me? I don't know you and I don't know your environment. I have no idea if this is going to be the best thing you ever had or the worst or somewhere in the middle. You have to try it and tell me. And so if you do have one of these or decide to buy one, I would love to hear what your honest comments are about it in our video comment section below this video when we're done live. Like right now, it's a live chat room. When we're done, there'll be a comments. I'd love for you to put it into the comments, not into the chat, in the comments, and share your experience, good or bad. What drive did you use, right? Because that's going to impact your experience. If you put, I got an old drive laying around I took out of a mini PC that's slow, this is overkill for that. It's not matched up properly. So if you're like, well, I didn't get 3800. Well, what drive did you put in there? Well, some old Kingston drive I had. Okay, well, that's why. The Kingston drive bottlenecked it. What computer did you plug it into? Oh, I have a 6-year-old. Okay, that's why it's running slow, because you plugged it into a computer that doesn't have the port that it needs to run at this speed. If you want to see these speeds, you've got to buy the right drive. You've got to have the right USB port on your computer. And it'll do it. If you don't, it's backwards compatible. So in other words, it's still going to work. It's not like it's going to be useless, but you're not going to see the speeds I'm showing you, which match the speeds the manufacturer says it'll do if everything is good. If you've got a good drive, a good cable, which we're using the one it comes with, plugged into a USB 4 or Thunderbolt 3 or 4 port, you too can achieve these speeds. It's that easy. But if you're just going to reuse some old part you've got laying around, you could buy a much cheaper enclosure that doesn't require USB 4. Mara says, a minor difference, but what may be worthy to note is the power requirements with USB 4 versus Thunderbolt 4, which are in the notes. David Graham says, I didn't even know this existed until you showed me. So yeah, reviews are important. Well, I wouldn't call this so much as a review as an introduction. In other words, I can introduce products to you that you may not know existed. maybe from manufacturers who don't have the big marketing budgets of the large corporations, and maybe as a result have cheaper price points and maybe better, maybe more attractive, or solve a problem that you weren't aware of, that you didn't realize, hey, that would really be useful for me. So I try my best to explain to manufacturers, I don't sell this. I just introduce your product to my audience. We have a very targeted audience interested in tech. It's not like a generic commercial on the radio that airs to everybody, regardless of their interest. You're watching a tech channel. We're showing you some tech you may not have known it existed, or you might just be interested. You might find it fascinating. With regards to reviewing it, I mean, we're not going to see better results than they've told us they've already got. We're just not going to do better than that. I suppose if we received it, it felt like it was cheap or plasticky. It's not. It's got a good solid feel. The top is plastic. The bottom is metal. The USB cable, not the longest, but when you go fast data transfers, you can't go with a long cable, because as the cable gets longer, the data transfer will go down, especially when you're dealing with super high speeds like this. So yeah, I consider what I do are product introductions. It's up to the company to sell it. It's up to the company to make you want it. I just go, hey, here's what it is, here's what it does, here's what it looks like in my hands versus photos. You ever order a gem, like a diamond, online? You know, the picture of it's this big, and then you get it, and you're like, yeah, I guess that matches the photo. It's sort of like a cereal box, and the cereal will be enlarged, and it'll say in fine print, enlarged to show texture. And you open the box, and they're super teeny tiny. But yeah, you know, to have a point of reference different from the marketing photos, I think is important. But again, that's more introduction than it is review. I think the review on this, essentially, what they're not telling you is that toolless design that they're saying is a benefit. I don't like it. What was the other thing? Oh, and the fact that there's no alignment. I mean, there is a mark on this. So it just says 40 right here, 40 gigabit. But when you take this off, see, there's no indication. Does it go off this way or does it go off this way? It's got to go off towards the cable. How do I know that? I'm just looking at it. I mean, there's nothing that points. Where's the arrow that says this way? You push down and out, away. Oh, it goes the other way. I am completely wrong. So you push, edit that out. You're going to push down, away from towards me, away from the cable. So down and away. It only slides back about, that might be half an inch. Somewhere between a quarter, and that's American standard measurements, I understand. And then you lift it straight off. But then when you go to put it back on, you got to remember it was pretty well close to a half inch away, because I had no idea. I couldn't remember. I was like, did it slide all the way out? No, it can't slide all the way. So if I had some alignment dots on the lid that says, you know, align it here, then slide it forward, boy, that sure would have made it easier, and an easier disconnect that's toolless. Those two things, very minor improvements, very minor complaints, but that's my job. That's what I do. Planet Cryo says it'd be interesting if they made an enclosure that's wireless. Well, they do technically, if you wanted to get there, as you already know. You could take this device. I think we're not using it. I'm going to unplug it. So you got to be careful on cheaper enclosures. Doing that can kill your NVMe drive. There has to be power dissipation, gentle power dissipation, or you'll shock your NVMe drive and kill it. So that ORICO says they do that here. So we're fine. We should be fine. We'll plug it in a minute and make sure we didn't harm anything. But for you to just buy a cheap enclosure, if you don't disconnect it and shut it down from power, or sometimes they have a power button, you need to power it off. If it has a power button, it has it for a reason. And when you disconnect it without just hitting the power button on other units, you'll kill your NVMe drive. It's your fault. You shock it. You don't realize pulling it out can shock it. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Oh, wireless. Wireless. We could take this and plug it into the back of our router and share this on the network. That's effectively wireless. So if you have a laptop that's Wi-Fi to your router, and this is plugged into your router, you've got your own little NAS. Pretty much shared storage over your network. You could access it on the internet if you wanted to configure it that way. You can access it on every computer, wired or wireless. When you run into wireless, like let's say it's Bluetooth, you're going to be limited to Bluetooth speeds, and you're going to have distance issues and potential interference from congestion of other wireless devices around you. And then you have security concerns, which means you're going to have encryption, which means that the whole data transfer is going to slow down as it encrypts and decrypts through the process. So wireless literally also means you're going to have a battery of some sort with a battery life that if you're in the middle of a data transfer or read or write and your battery runs out, well, too bad. You can understand why wireless wouldn't make any sense for all of these reasons when it comes to a large storage device. But you could invent your own cloud, which in effect is wireless, right? Well, what if my router doesn't have a USB port on the back of it? Well, if you have a router so cheap, you probably don't want a device this new and tech savvy if you're running an old router. These two things don't go together. But if you wanted to do it just because, you could plug it into the USB port of a computer, share that drive on your network, and never turn the computer off. This will just go to sleep after a while. It's probably going to time out after about 10 minutes or whatever. And then when you go to use it, it'll automatically wake it back up. And as long as the computer's left on and you've configured it, again, you can create your own cloud. You can just share it locally. It effectively becomes wireless without any of those wireless issues. So I know you were just kind of joking and you said, but I thought about it. Well, here's all the reasons why you wouldn't want it wireless. And here's how you would make it wireless effectively. Peter VZ with a €1 super chat contribution. Right on. Thank you, Peter. Doman 2000 said it's a questionable design if you can kill an NVMe that easy. So it depends on if you try to make your own NVMe drive and you don't have a capacitor in it for absorbing the power shocks, I can guarantee you're going to kill the NVMe drive. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know that. But these are specifically designed to have a capacitor that drains the power slowly. So watch, let's plug this back in. Let me put myself back in a corner. And if this is dead, I will just make an ass of myself. That won't be the first time. These professional enclosures should be designed where they can be unplugged without damaging. It's the home lab stuff. It's the cheap stuff you're getting off at AliExpress. The cheap stuff is dangerous. You have to make sure that you disconnect the drive and the power goes out. On a really cheap one, if you don't disconnect it, or rather when you disconnect it, there's going to be like the light will flash on the device for a few seconds, and then the light will go out. And then you can disconnect it. If you just pull the cable without doing that on those kind of enclosures, those cheap ones, you risk damaging the drive every single time you get away with it. It only happened to me once. I only disconnected the drive once and it never worked again after that. I will never do that again. I'll make sure I get an enclosure that's got a capacitor on it. So if we plug this back in, and we should see it without any damage. There it is. Just give that speech, then have it do it. Let's go back over to, jump at the full screen here real quick. Close this. Open this. Yeah. No, that's drive G. That's my flash drive. That's my USB flash drive, which I can unplug right now, and we'll watch the G drive go away. There's the ORICO. That's the F drive right there. Now, if I just grab it and unplug it, this device should save the NVMe from a power shock. It should absorb it. So if I plug it back in and it still works, then the device did that. If I plug it back in and it no longer works, I burned it out. Okay? Cheaper NVMe enclosures don't have that safety precaution. This is an NVMe drive. It's not designed to be external. You understand that? The engineers who made NVMe drives intended for them to be installed on motherboards. They did not intend for them to be slapped into an external enclosure. You're not normally unplugging your NVMe drive out of your motherboard, are you? While your motherboard is on? I guarantee you'll only do it once. You will only do that one time. But that's what you're emulating. When you unplug this, it's like you just unplugged it out of your motherboard. And the base manufacturer, the NVMe drive manufacturer, this is not meant to be hot swappable. So to be able to plug that in without having to do the whole disconnect, without having to hit a power button on the device, that's a feature that not all enclosures have. It's a little tip from your Uncle Kerry. Okay. Had enough? I give up. Let's go to, hold on a second. We are right at our 2-hour mark, so I think that'll wrap it up for today. Now, there are links to both the NVMe drive I used. You can use any NVMe drive you want. Your performance and capacity may vary. Of course, the device itself, the link for that, Mara has added into the show notes from both the original manufacturer link and a link to Amazon here in the US. Let me just check the phone real quick because I have not done that. I'll show. This is great for like backups with a Cronus, and you don't want, say you've got a big backup. And the reason you don't do it is, oh, my backup takes forever. It won't take forever with this. This and a Cronus would be a great matchup. Aw. My friend Ron sent me a picture of a mutual friend's new corgi. Who can't like the face of a corgi or a corgi's butt? They're cute. There's whole memes of corgi butts. That's information we didn't need to know, Carrie. Mara wants to know if we can create a poll in chat. What are you using for your enclosure and how would you use it? So Mara can go under the channel studio and go to, I think it's posts, and create a post and put a chat in the community post, which is different from a video. I don't know how many of you have ever seen my posts, but on the YouTube side of things, there are tabs for the viewers. And I think it says community or it says posts. I don't use it very often. And we can put polls in there. Sometimes I put products that I think, hey, this is a good deal. And if you're not watching that, you're missing other information I'm posting here on YouTube that's not a video. So I'll have to show that to Mara later. And then let me just check my email right quick. I'm still getting updates about houses for sale in Michigan. Prices are still really high. The feds are supposed to drop interest rates, we'll see, but I'm getting like 8 new listings every day for the last 3 weeks. Everybody's trying to sell their house for some reason. Oh, a shout out and a thank you to our friend Paul Gray in Australia, who sent us an Amazon gift card, a very generous Amazon gift card. Paul, again, watches us from Australia. We always want to shout out our friend Buster, who watches us in Scotland, our friend Oystein, who watches us in Norway, and of course our friend Frankie B, who watches us here in New York. All of you, all of the members, as well as all of the viewers, help keep us free from having to be a corporate puppet spokesperson, controlling what I say, how I say, and they have to pre-approve everything before you can see it. I don't want to do that. But financially, to pay the bills, Well, we're viewer supported here. So if you enjoy the content, if you find some value in it, any contribution is appreciated. Gift cards, PayPal, super chats, every little bit, it adds up. And so we deeply, deeply appreciate all the super chats and all those memberships, because without them, there would be no video to watch today. Of course, we want to thank ORICO for sending us the unit. They've been very patient because they sent the unit right as we were moving. And like, hey, what's taking so long? We're moving. So we wanted to make sure we get them reviewed. Next, we're going to review the Zyke drive. And then we'll compare them both in price, size, performance. And you can make your decision. As well as, I don't think the Zyke drive is available on Amazon, which could be a con versus a pro for some people. Having the confidence, the peace of mind that if you don't like it, you can return it very easily for free to Amazon, makes me want to buy from Amazon. When you buy direct from the manufacturer, it may take longer to ship. The return policy may not be as generous. It might be cheaper because they're not paying an Amazon commission selling it through Amazon. It's really up to you, right? If you're a gambler, some companies are really, really good with that. With Zyke Drive, I don't know. I have no idea what their customer service or shipping is like. I do know what Amazon's customer service and shipping is like. So I always prefer, even if it costs a few dollars more, get it from Amazon so I have that peace of mind. That's important to me. I'm just mentioning that for you to consider. Our friends at Acronis and our friends at RoboForm, we can't thank them enough for helping support us here and offering you guys a 30% discount. Acronis is a product I use when I'm installing a new drive, replacing an older, slower drive. I've even used it where some drives are sort of working and I've been able to recover data. If you see videos about how to deal with ransomware, what's the best antivirus? Who cares? Honestly, who cares? If you have a proper backup, it doesn't matter if you get a virus. It doesn't matter if you get ransomware. It matters if they steal your data, but you just simply restore your data, wipe the drive entirely, do a complete restore, and you literally go back in time before the virus or the ransomware took effect. So you don't have to worry about, how do I remove the virus? How do I get rid of the ransomware without paying the ransom? Why would you put yourself in that position when for like $30 you can buy an annual subscription to Acronis, make a full image and keep it updated regularly and keep it disconnected so that if the machine gets infected, your backup doesn't get infected. And even if you did, Acronis protects your backup anyway. So then you could just boot to an Acronis rescue disk, restore the entire system back before the virus or ransomware took over. Or if you have a drive failure, you don't need to send that to a data recovery center and spend $1,200 and wait 2 weeks and hope they get it all back. You could be your own data recovery, do it faster, get 100% data recovery every single time for what is essentially $3 a month? Are you kidding me? What? Are you not doing this? Acronis is offering you 30% off and a free trial to evaluate it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I sound like I'm Ron Popeil, but wait, there's more. I genuinely love this product. And if you go back to 2008, I was using Acronis back then, long before we established any sort of a relationship. I wanted them to like me. Please like me, because I use your product and I endorse it all the time. Not all companies do that. We never got any love back from Scythe. We use the Scythe coolers all the time, and nothing ever evolved. It doesn't always work. So you can imagine just how pleased I am that a company that I really like and use, Acronis, likes me back, and they like you guys too. 30% off. Also, RoboForm, that's a password manager. If you don't know what a password manager is, just Google RoboForm here on the channel. We've got an interview showing how to use it. Free trial, decide for yourself. I think you're crazy to not be using a password manager. Use something. Because a password manager, especially like RoboForm, you can install it on any number of devices you want. It doesn't cost any more. It's an annual subscription. Everything's encrypted. Even RoboForm cannot get your encrypted passwords back. If you lose your password, your main RoboForm password, that's the only one you need to remember. It's so encrypted and so locked down, even the folks at RoboForm cannot get that for you. Never forget your RoboForm password. But RoboForm will store all your logins and passwords, even forms, name, address, city, zip, even credit card, social security number. If you want it to, you just hit the button, it auto-fills those fields for you. If you're going to a website and you have to log into it with your username and password, instead of using a bookmark in your browser, you use the bookmark in RoboForm, and it will take you to the site, auto-fill your login and password, and submit it. And you're logged in. And the password could be this long. It doesn't even matter. RoboForm remembers it. If you don't know how to make a good password, RoboForm will make it for you and generate a different one every time. It's very inexpensive. Put it on your phone, put it on your laptop, put it on your desktop. Costs the same no matter how many devices you put it on. What else can I tell you? VIP CDK deals. If you're looking for a Windows, a real, genuine, real, authentic Windows license, why would you spend more than you have to? No risk, guaranteed, great support, VIP CDK deals. Who else is going to sell you a key and stand behind it? There's a lot of scammers out there. They want your money, and once they've got it, you'll never hear from them again. When it comes to Windows and Office keys, we can be tempted to buy the cheapest ones from places like eBay, which doesn't allow it, by the way. If you buy a license key from eBay, you will soon find, as soon as that sale is completed, eBay's aware of it and they close that account. That's why that account will have very little feedback. eBay does not allow that, nor does Etsy. I know those prices look tempting, but you're rolling the dice on what you're getting. If you don't want to roll the dice and you want peace of mind, then you want VIP CDK deals. They stand behind what they sell. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to them. And guess what? There's a coupon code, 30% off. That's for you. That's not for me. That's for you. Okay, so you can ask people in the live chat. You can ask people in the comments what they think. Don't believe me. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to have your own experience, and then I want you to share that experience in the comments with me, good or bad. Tell me what it was like. Because I can tell you right now, that's how confident I am about these particular, I'm going to loosely say sponsors, but I run a tech shop. And I have to stand behind what I sell. And what I sell represents me to my customers. If I sell crap, my customers think my work is crap. It represents me. I don't just offer you guys products. And products like this, it's really up to you. It's new to me too. We'll look at it together and we each decide on our own. It's not, for what it is and for what it does, I'm very happy with it, by the way. I think it's a fair price. And it does exactly what it says it's going to do. The fact that the installation's a little weird, I probably am going to put a drive in it and never change that NVMe drive ever again. But if you're somebody that's going to be swapping drives around, that's up to you to decide. All right, I think we're good. David Graham says, what happens to your passwords if RoboForm goes out of business? Fair question. Your RoboForm passwords are stored both on RoboForm servers and on your local device. So if RoboForm goes out of business, that just means that any further synchronizing of your passwords will stop working because the RoboForm servers will be shut down. RoboForm is like the OG of password managers. I can't imagine they would go out of business. They've been in business for 2 decades, at least 2 decades. It's not like they're new. They've been in business a long time. If it were me, I'd be more worried about a new company being sustainable. Obviously, RoboForm's sustainable, otherwise they wouldn't be in business for 2 decades. But anything's possible. Anything could happen. So fair question, what if RoboForm went out of business? I'll tell you what's happened with cloud services that have gone out of business. They will send you a notice, an email, and they will say you have 30 days to move your data before it's deleted. You will get a notice by law that it's closing. I will tell you, with RoboForm, a copy of your passwords is encrypted on your local device. So even if the RoboForm servers went down, the RoboForm locally on your device will still function. It doesn't require the RoboForm servers to function. As far as I know, once it's activated, you're good. We can play the what if game all day, right? What if there were no hypothetical situations? Here's the thing, and I can't emphasize this enough. RoboForm is very rarely included in reviews of password managers, and I don't understand why, when in my opinion, it's the best one. It's never had a breach. It's never had an update that's ever caused a computer problem or a blue screen. It's, not CrowdStrike. Never in its history has that ever happened. What happens if it does? Depends what it is. It's unprecedented. So it's also very inexpensive, right? If you want to spend $3,000 on a password manager, I could understand being very demanding. This is a very affordable, functional, historically proven password manager. I don't think there's an older, more capable password manager on the market. And I think it's a gross injustice when password managers are reviewed and RoboForm is not mentioned. So the poor reader doesn't even know that's an option for them to consider. That is such an injustice. Maybe these other password managers are paying to be reviewed, but then that's a commercial. If I'm paid to do a review, that's not a review. I'm sorry. That's not a review. In all honesty, a true review would be something I paid for myself, right? There could be some bias because the product was sent for free. But this is a product I don't need. It doesn't mean that the product's bad. I just ordinarily wouldn't buy this because I don't have any need for this. I use a NAS personally, and I use a little flash drive when I go to customers. But if I had to move a lot of data and I needed a large, fast storage device, I would buy it. So just keep in mind, a lot of people say review when behind the scenes they're getting paid. That's anybody getting paid, it's not a review. Sorry, that's a commercial. There's too much of that on YouTube, and I hope YouTube develops a rule, or the FTC here in America requires it, forces YouTube to disclose. Well, there is a little checkbox for paid endorsement, but it's optional. The creator does not have to check that box. I'm sure you've seen it pops up momentarily on the screen at the beginning of the video, and you never see it again. So yeah, that's what's going on behind the scenes. You got to wonder how people pay their bills, right? Mark Baggett said, I subscribed to RoboForm back in May and I love it. I wish I would have gotten it sooner. That is nearly what everybody says. Once they figure out, like, how does this work? Once you see how it works, you're going to wonder how you ever lived without it. I'm telling you. I hear it over and over and over again. And if you're not sure what a password manager is, just look in our video history or just Google RoboForm or Google Password Manager to learn about it. Pick one. Even if it's not RoboForm, you should be using a password manager. And if you can find a password manager better than RoboForm with support that you can actually reach out, like free ones you don't get support, a paid password manager that's better than RoboForm, never seen it. Show me one that's been in business longer. As far as I know, it doesn't exist. So you've got a long history. Same with the Acronis. I've been using Acronis since 2008. Solid product. It's got a history. It's proven itself. It's not something new. It's not some free thing that you have to figure out on your own and get help from other individuals that may or may not know what they're talking about. This has paid support, free updates throughout your subscription period. It's a bargain. The subscription is far cheaper than a perpetual license that eventually goes out of compatibility with new hardware. So then you end up buying another perpetual license. Once your perpetual license, for a certain amount of time, you're going to get support. Even on a perpetual license, you don't get endless support. It'll cost them more in support costs than what you paid for the product. So subscription licenses are cheaper, keep you up to date, keeps you compatible, gives you the latest security and encryption. Anyway, do what you're going to do. But I'm telling you, they're a bargain. David Graham says, I've got 50 passwords. How does RoboForm handle my existing passwords? You need to watch, and we did a review of RoboForm and how to use it. You can go to RoboForm's website, and they will show you how to use it. If you don't want to watch a video, they have their own tutorial right on the website. In fact, let me just take a quick look. Maybe we can grab that real quick. Let me see if I can find the link. We'll go to RoboForm. Now, to use the discount, 30% off, there's no coupon code. You just have to go to roboform.com/carry, and that automatically gives you a 30% discount. So let's go to RoboForm's website. And let me share the screen with you, and we'll look at it together. Window capture is what I want. Okay. So you can also use RoboForm on somebody else's computer. In other words, you don't have to use the app. So if you're like on a cruise ship and you want to use a public computer, you can log into RoboForm, do your sign-ins, and then when you log out, it leaves no trace for the next person using that shared computer. So they have personal plans, business plans, download, support, full overview right here under manual. So this is a manual. It's very, very powerful, and you can use it simply, or you can use it in a more complex way. I tend to keep things pretty simple, and that's why I like the videos that demonstrate how to use it. But I do believe they have like a tutorial. So compared to other password managers, they're telling you what RoboForm does that they don't do. Real ratings and real user reviews, frequently asked questions. I know there's a tutorial on here somewhere. How about if we just Google search RoboForm tutorial? How about that? roboform.com/tutorials. So here's installation and setup on Windows, on Mac, creating and saving a login, how do you log into a site, creating a safe note, creating an identity. You don't have to do all this, by the way. These are all things you can do, but you don't have to. If you have other passwords, you want to auto import them into RoboForm from another password manager. If you want to put this on your phone, whether it's Android or iOS, and you can enable two-factor authentication. Okay, so all of that is available, and we have videos here on the channel. If we go to YouTube, and we'll go to RoboForm Carrie Holzman. Bingo, interview with RoboForm password and special offer. That was last year. But if you don't want to believe me, check out these other reviews. Don't take my word for it. I can't tell you if any of these are paid reviews, and I can't tell you that they're all positive. But I walk through it with RoboForm themselves. Who better to tell us how to use the product so that you can see how to download it, how to install it, and examples of how to use it in the most basic way. And then you can dive in deeper if you want to. And then when you do that and you realize what it does, let us know what you think of it. That's how confident I am you're going to love it. Okay, where was I? I was saying goodbye 20 minutes ago. Thanks, you guys. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for your questions and interacting with me. I appreciate that very much. Mark Gaines out there in Northern Ireland said he subscribed to RoboForm for 4 years and now I couldn't do without it. Neither could I. It's almost like the phone book in your phone. I don't know anybody's phone number anymore. I say I want to call Mara. What's Mara's phone number? I don't know what it is. It's like a password manager. Your phone book on your phone, where you're just putting somebody's name and it dials it, it's kind of like that for your logins and passwords to websites. It's pretty darn cool. You don't have to keep using the same password, nor should you. Every site can have a unique password and you don't have to care what it is. Let RoboForm make this bizarre password that makes no sense. Let RoboForm remember it and let RoboForm enter it for you. Just remember your RoboForm password and enable two-factor authentication, right? So that way, if you want to make sure your passwords are secure, if anybody tries logging in as you on RoboForm, then you're going to get the two-factor authentication. You're going to say, what's this? And just simply don't reply to it. Don't acknowledge it. And they won't be able to get in, but you'll know somebody tried with 2FA turned on. Peace of mind. Thanks for joining us, Richard. Thank you, of course, to all of the viewers, and Marlena in the background there doing all of our administrative work, the thumbnails, the video notes, hanging out in the chat with us, answering your questions, talking with potential sponsors, arranging this with ORICO. She's doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We appreciate her very, very much. And, of course, our friends at Acronis, RoboForm, VIP CDK deals. Feel free to share your experience with anything we talk about here on the channel in the comments. Good or bad, we want to hear from you. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.